welcome to Macked, the podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie, and we're back with another episode. Hopefully my energy levels aren't so low because this is like take 2. Just recorded, and then the audio was not audioing. It literally just went shh the whole time. Anyway, today's book review is on The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. It's a non-fiction book, and I just want to read you because you know that I don't necessarily do your traditional book review type things. I just want to read you off the internet what it says. So this book got a 4.5 book rating out of 5 by Goodreads. So it's a really good book. Also, it was liked by about 87% of Google users. Of course, these are people who read the book and liked it. 87% of them liked them, and I think that's really good. Like, it should already tell you hey, yo, go buy that book, go. So just want to read you off essentially that the book was published in 1963 by James Baldwin, and the genre falls under essays, but I could say it's more like letters, which makes sense why they say essays, right? But more so just letters, poetic type letters, really Anyway, The Fire Next Time is a 1963 non-fiction book by James Baldwin containing 2 essays. My Dungeon, Letter to My Nephew on the 100th Anniversary of the Emancipation, and Down at the Cross, Letter from the Region of My Mind. So it basically just tells you that the book is split into 2 parts, which is the dungeon where he writes the letter to his nephew, who also happens to be James, and also Down at the Cross, a letter from the region of my mind. I just want to read, what I'm essentially going to do is I am going to discuss 2 talking points, and then I think that would be enough for this episode alone, and then we'll probably have 2 more parts for the book because I don't want a very lengthy video, just so that we can keep up and absorb, and also maybe just engage. And if you happen to go read the book, you also kind of get where you are, and if you happen to be reading the same book as well, kind of just share what we think. So I would appreciate you commenting. I want to hear your thoughts. So also, if you're watching us on YouTube is the place to YouTube is the place for you to go comment. And just, I want to know what you hear. I want to know what you like. I want to be in your thought. I want to know what you think about the book, or about whatever it is that I'm going to say now. Whether you think that is the correct analogy, whether that's the correct explanation you think, how you feel about everything essentially. Also, if you are going to be watching us on YouTube from Spotify, that would be on Everything Mackenzie. If you're on Everything Mackenzie on the YouTube, watching us on the YouTube platform, and you would like to go give us a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, really, that would be Macked, the podcast. So yeah, do go give us a rating, a 5-star rating. But if you think we're not at 5 just yet, any rating would be fine. Of course not 1, because 1 gives bad. So just anything above 3. I'll take a 3, but anything above 3, because 3 is pretty average. It's in the middle. You think you're half and half about the podcast or this episode, or whatever the case may be. Anyway, I want to read the first paragraph of his letter to his nephew before I go on to the 2 speaking points. So his letter reads, also let me drink water. I think people would cough first and then drink water. I don't know. But anyway, Dear James, I have begun this letter 5 times and torn it up 5 times. It's funny because I recorded this and then I'm re-recording. That's so funny. Anyway, I have begun this letter 5 times and torn it up 5 times. I keep seeing your face, which is also the face of your father and my brother. Like him, you are tough, dark, vulnerable, moody, with a very definite tendency to sound truculent because you want no one to think you are soft. You may be like your grandfather in this. I don't know, but certainly both you and your father resemble him, very much physically, while he is dead and he never saw you. And he had a terrible life. He was defeated long before he died because at the bottom of his heart, he really believed what white people said about him. This is one of the reasons that he became so holy. I am sure that your father has told you something about all that. Neither you nor your father exhibit any tendencies towards holiness. You really are of another era. Part of what happened when the Negro left the land and came into what the late E. Franklin Fraser called the cities of destruction. You can only be destroyed by believing that you really are what the white world calls a nigger. I tell you this because I love you, and please don't you ever forget it. I just found that's like literally the first paragraph of the whole letter, and as much as I'm tempted to read you the whole thing, just go get the book or get the ebook, because on Google, if you just search The Fire Next Time, you can get the first 13 pages of the book for free. So you can like literally just read that. And if you are not sold by that, my brother, my sister, hear me out. I don't know what will sell you, because this is a really good book. I got it in 9th grade, 10th grade from my uncle, and I read it in passing. I read it without contextualization or conceptualization. I just read it. And then I made the conscious decision a couple of months ago that, you know what, I'm gonna read this book, because I've also been consuming some of like James Baldwin's interviews, Malcolm X, Elijah or Elia, that person's interviews as well. And I was like, hey, I have a book by James Baldwin. Why am I not reading the book? Do I know what the book is about? Because it's one thing to know what the book is about and one thing to know what the book says. And I was like, okay, sure, I know what the book is about, but I don't know what the book actually says. And then like, oh, I don't remember, because clearly when I read it in passing. I read it with no understanding. And now I was like, cool. And it also is a really easy read. It is an easy read, but it's also a deep read. It's a very emotional read. It's a political read, but more so it's an emotional read. It is one of those books that force you to engage with yourself, to introspect, to reflect, but in the same breath, it compels you to reflect upon your society and how your society is impacted by itself. Really, that's the most simple way I can put it. Anyway, I'm gonna read you 2 pages or 2 quotes, and then I just want us to like take it from there, and I will probably have 2 more episodes, like I said. So this book consists of about 89 pages. That's why I said it's like a thingy, an easy read. And also they give you like a couple of synopsis from the rest of his books in case you're interested in getting those. I am planning on getting every book he's ever written. When am I planning on doing that? I don't know, but my life is long. Still have a couple of years, even though, hey, tomorrow's never promised. Anyway, page 67 says, the most dangerous creation of any society is that man who has nothing to lose. So now this has me thinking about loss and has me thinking about danger, right? Because it says that the most dangerous creation of any society, which kind of, in this case, I'd probably use the analogy of John Wick or Vin Diesel. John Wick, in the sense that he lost his wife, he lost his dog. He has nothing to lose right now. So all that hurt that he has experienced, he is now about to go out into the world and kill those people who took those whom he loved from him, because he has nothing to lose now. So it kind of just shows that that's like more so the negative side of it. And then you get a person like, who's this person? Vin Diesel from Fast and Furious. And he has his family, but he's still going out to fight for his family, his inherent family and his self-made family, which is his formed family, his friends, right? And while we live in a society, well, it's not that we live in a society like that. Society has always been like that. Civilization has always been like that, even long before we existed, long before I existed, long before you who's watching this existed, right? Family has always been viewed as a weakness, especially now, like in terms of like when you watch movies, when you watch like these action movies, like having someone you love is a weakness. Having a family is a weakness, because now you have something to lose and you're going to do everything you can to protect them. But then when you think about it in the context of Fast and Furious, you look at it in the sense that like, I have love, and if I have love, I have nothing to lose, but I probably could lose it, right? So now you take, like, look at how his friends kind of like died, Vin Diesel, like the franchise, the series, or whatever it is you call it, like previously, all the people who've gotten hurt and his family who's still here, they've gotten hurt, right? But now he uses, there's a part where that hurt that he has experienced now turns into anger. And that was when you realize that he is dangerous. But that danger is not negative. It's more so, I am going to protect my family and I'm going to take the evil out of the world because I want to maintain the positive. Which is more so like, I can't remember who, I think it might be Immanuel Kant, who speaks about the means justifying the ends. Yeah, the means justify the ends, in the sense that like, you are going to kill but only because you want good in the world, type of thing, right? It's a whole, he was a philosophist and an ethicist. Philosopher, not philosophist, gosh. Philosopher and ethicist, right? So his whole school of thinking was like that whole entire thing. And now I want to link it back to like John Wick and Vin Diesel. These are both people who inherently want good. Both people are fueled by vengeance. They are fueled by anger. But they all stem from hurt, and they stem from a good place because you want good. So it kind of like shows you also the duality of life, that you can turn danger into a good thing. You can be dangerous but be positively dangerous, and you can be dangerous but negatively dangerous, because this one person has something to lose, but in the same breath they also don't have anything to lose, because they are fighting for their family, and for some reason they know that in the end their family will be sorted. This one person no longer has family, he is alone, he's mad, and he's going to kill, and he doesn't care whether he dies or not really, but he knows that he's not going to die anyway. Just that type of thing. Also, I haven't seen the latest John Wick, but I hope that I have articulated this well enough for you to grasp what I'm saying when I say that we shouldn't necessarily look at danger as a negative thing and loss as a negative thing, essentially, in this case. Why this got me thinking of that, I don't know, but I just kind of thought that that is what I got from this page, and that quote that I highlighted specifically. Anywho, the second thing that we are going to do is exactly on page 68. So that's like the second page. But for this one, I kind of want to read you. I want to say the whole paragraph. It's quite lengthy, but I think I will know where to stop. So James Baldwin says, I remembered my buddies of years ago in the hallways with their wine and their whiskey and their tears, in hallways still frozen on the needle, and my brother saying to me once, If Harlem didn't have so many churches and junkies, there'd be blood flowing in the streets. Protect your woman. A difficult thing to do in a civilization sexually so pathetic that the white man's masculinity depends on a denial of the masculinity of the blacks. Protect your woman. In a civilization that emasculates the male and abuses the female, and in which, moreover, the male is forced to depend on the female's breadwinning power, protect your woman. In the teeth of the white man's boast, we figure we are doing you folks a favor by pumping some white blood into your kids, and while facing the southern shotgun and the northern billy years ago, we used to say, yes, I'm black, goddammit, and I'm beautiful, in defiance into the void. But now African kings and heroes have come into the world out of the past, and the past can now be put to the uses of power, and black has become a beautiful color. Not because it is loved, but because it is feared. And this urgency on the part of American Negroes is not to be forgotten. Bro, there's so many, like, as I was reading this, I wanted to, like, stop and read or, like, say what I was thinking. But I figured it might also mess with the flow if you're, like, listening to this. And just the whole part about living in a civilization sexually so pathetic that the white man's masculinity depends on the denial of the masculinity of the blacks. It goes back to that whole chat about inferiority and how the black person is inferior to the white person, right? In those times have changed, but there of course are still people who think differently, and there'll always be people who think differently. But in this case, we're looking at the majority. And I think that the fact that you'll realize this in the next episode, where I will basically just be continuing this because it's essentially the same inferiority chat. Actually, you know what? It's still in this, where this person speaking about masculinity and how I just related it back to inferiority goes back to this pumping of white blood into our kids, right? So essentially we know that black men, or white men, sorry, also black men also did do that, but white men would rape their slaves, their subjects, rape black women, whatever the case is. And in some cases that led to those people being impregnated, right? So essentially, when we look at it from like one aspect and not considering that there were black men who were of course doing the same thing, I just want to show how like this was stupid in this sense, which also was stupid in the other context, but like this is not necessarily about like thinking about advocating for both sides or arguing against both sides. It's just a matter of like in terms of the book, because the book speaks of what happened, right? So I just want to like stay in par with the book. And you think of how these white men did that and how they claim to have been pumping white blood into our kids, which essentially just means that if a white man had raped me in those times, had I been alive, I would have had a child, a mixed child, right? And now this is the part that it creates a different race, which would be the colored race, or yeah, the colored race, even though like in those days, or rather in the US, being colored is like a derogatory term to like call mixed people, right? So now it sounds as though the idea here, and I think Trevor Noah might have alluded to something similar when he explained colors or colored, the colored race, but like with regards to that, you get what I'm saying? So now listen to my logic, and I would also like to hear what you have to say in the comments. Listen to my logic. So essentially what they're saying is, I am pumping white blood into your kids. So then what's supposed to happen is it's as though they are banking on evolution, right? That every, like, as they happen to produce more offspring, eventually black people will no longer exist, but we are now creating a different race. But for some reason, this different race won't stay as a mixed race, it will evolve into whiteness. Because even though you have a mixed race, you still don't have 100% pure white. And that is what is very weird about the logic and makes it stupid, because even though you're pumping white blood, are you hoping to like make them less black? Because in the same context, you could go on and produce purely white children, but you aren't doing that. Instead, you're populating the world and populating it in such a sense that like it works against your benefit and just kind of like is gonna annoy you even more, because now there's suddenly more non-whites than there are whites. You get that? It's stupid. Anyway, and then there's another part that
My
says
thought
protect your
process kind
woman
of
in a
got
civilization that
interrupted here
emasculates the male
as
and abuses
I
the female, and in which
received a call.
moreover the male
However,
is
I will
forced to
continue this
depend
in the
on the
next
female's
episode, so please do
breadwinning
be sure to
power.
look out for the next episode of Mac to the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marlies Mackenzie, and it's been a pleasure sending you all love and light.